This is the dawn of a new era in British karting. Over 550 drivers in 12 classes competing for victory over 18 race weekends. This is the Motorsport UK British Kart Championships.
Chris Whilton takes the flag.
Going to be enough for
TKM's next champion.
to win again in TKM Extreme.
For rounds 11 and 12 of the 2019 British Kart Championships, the conclusion of the season, we spoke to TKM Extreme driver Theo Hesketh on how his championship's gone this year.
TKM on the whole has been so close. You can drop 2 tenths and drop 15 positions in qualifying, so it makes it a really challenging and interesting class. The races are always really good because they're always so close. We've had a very mixed season. Over the past rounds, we haven't done quite as well in the heats, so we're looking to obviously improve on that now and hopefully finish off the season on a high.
Here they come now out of the pit bend and on towards the timing line. And across the timing line they go, instantly cuts across the pole sitter as they go into Crook. Hopefully they all manage to get round there. Such a competitive class always, the TKM Extreme, as they head up the hill for the first time. But it was a really good getaway from the pole sitter. Chris Whilton, the number 2, instantly cut across to make sure that he was defending well. But manages to get away in the end. Apologies for a couple of technical errors in the commentary area here, but we are fully into this race now. Approaching sector 3 for the first time, and Chris Whilton in the lead with Theo Hesketh started in second in the number 60. I think he may have dropped a little bit further down the order though. It was a maybe slightly unorthodox tactic from Chris Whilton from the off. But as Joe Fowler across the line, let's see what the order is. He's in third, Joe Fowler, James Pashley in fourth, no changes at all in order of the top 4. And therefore championship credentials are unfazed at this point, but Pashley, pretty sure he's got this one wrapped up. Certainly won't be too concerned about his rivals as well, who are further down the order, very much looking to just enjoy this race. I think James Pashley, almost a walk of fame for him. Chris Whilton and Theo Hesketh as the current top 2. Chris Whilton has been consistently one of the quickest drivers over the course of this weekend in the TKM Extreme, and showing that once again here in the early stages as they head out of the boot and on towards the very quick pit bend. Out they come of that. Got to make sure they don't get a wheel outside of that red and white painted curb, because if they do they could very easily incur a penalty. And well, actually those penalties really have to be taken into account for each of the championships at stake. Out of the top end then, the Christmas corner, Chris Whilton in the lead of the championship, and into Ashby now, a very tight corner for each of those drivers to head around, try to enter it as wide as possible to clip that apex on the inside. But Chris Whilton in the lead at the moment of this race, with soon-to-be crowned champion James Pashley in 4th position. Joe Fowler in 3rd in the number 1. He separates Pashley from Theo Hesketh, who's in 2nd place. It's been one of the most exciting drivers over the course of this weekend, I'd say. At the moment, the results mean that Adam Sparrow would move up to 2nd in the championship, meanwhile, with 596 points. Maybe a foregone conclusion at the very top of the championship table, but in terms of 2nd place, that's still very much up for grabs. And Adam Sparrow, if he finishes where he is and Lee Whittingham can't get any higher up than 8th or so, then Sparrow will be taking 2nd place in the championship, where Lee Whittingham held 2nd coming into this round, and round 11, which was completed a little bit earlier on today, of course. If they head towards the boot once again, this double apex bend, and once again into the pit bend before they're greeted with the sight of the timing board. They go across the line with 11 minutes and 50 seconds on the clock. Chris Whilton continuing to lead the way, with Theo Hesketh in 2nd position, who always seemed, I described him earlier as something of a driver who just manages to creep up on the opposition ahead. He was able to do that very capably, slowly reel them in and make sure that he follows through any easy opportunities, and whenever the door's wide open, will absolutely make sure that he takes the invitation, walks right on through, and Theo Hesketh's been able to do that several times over the course of the weekend. Joe Fowler right on the back of his bumper this time though, as the number 60 may have a bit of defending to do. I'm sure that nudge on his rear bumper will make him very much aware of the presence of the number 1, Joe Fowler. They go across the line now with just over 11 minutes left to go, and into Crook, out of that and up the hill once again. Something slightly familiar with this circuit. Sense that that hilly landscape, the drivers enjoy ascending and descending the circuit, the hilly, interesting circuit here at Whilton Mill. Around they go once again, heading into the Osiers corner. Left-hander before they have to quickly switch right onto the back straight and trying a manoeuvre up the inside. James Pashley, championship leader, up into 3rd place now, up the inside of the number 1 Joe Fowler, just on the entrance to the boot. Managed to do just that, and as they come across the line, James Pashley confirms his place in 3rd now, with Theo Hesketh being bumped down the order. Actually, it was Joe Fowler who was able to go through. Theo Hesketh down to 4th, so apologies for that. Theo Hesketh now down to 4th place, James Pashley in 3rd. Joe Fowler follows Chris Whitton, and the top 2 are number 2 followed by the number 1. Swap those 2 around, and that makes easy reading for the OCD. But moving up several positions there. Several drivers have gained many positions over the course of this race. Kyle Sproat is one of them, gaining 13 over the course of this race. Currently, that won't help him drop down the order though, courtesy of Matthew Taylor's currently very good position out there on track. He in 5th at the moment. He's gained several places, the number 29, and it means that currently where he is, although actually now he has on that previous lap as I speak, dropped behind Adam Sparrow, who himself has got that championship to try to hold Whittingham behind him. He's got 598 points to Whittingham's current 589, so reverse there for the last 2 digits means that currently Whittingham will have to settle for 3rd in the championship, despite holding the advantage coming into round 11. Hasn't been too fortunate over the course of the day, Lee Whittingham, but with Adam Sparrow doing well in the O-plate, means that he will be taking 2nd in the championship, but there's no stopping James Pashley in 3rd place. I think Chris Whitton in the lead of this one. He won't be too concerned about the championship, but certainly the race win that is on the line. The gap between the top 2 stands at 0.6 of a second, but then it's only 0.2 of a second between Joe Fowler and James Pashley. So maybe Pashley in with a shout of a top 2, or what would be his crowning race as the 2019 TKM Extreme Champion of the British Kart Champs, that draws to a close today. Next up, which will be a very exciting race I'm sure as well, is the Honda Cadet final round there as well, round 12. A couple of teammates having a tussle in the middle of the pack there. 2 TWM drivers, Alexander Page and Matthew Walnut in 8th and 9th. They're having a decent little tussle. Across the line go the front runners. Chris Whitton continuing to lead the way. The Clarkson Motorsport of Joe Fowler in 2nd place is being dropped ever so slightly by the sheer pace that the race leader has, and with 7 minutes and 40 seconds left on the clock, we've still got a decent portion of the race still to go. Heading around sector 2 now, majority of the carts head their way around Inkermans and into Ashby once more. Really dynamic landscape to look at in terms of the circuit itself here at Whilton Mill. Good that we've had dry weather for the majority as well. Over the course of the weekend we certainly have, but for Friday might have been some concerns then. Has overall been dry, been able to utilise those slick tyres as well as they can, each of these drivers. Just over 7 minutes to spare. Whitton firmly with the win of this race in his sight. 10 laps gone now, and Joe Fowler in 2nd position still has James Pashley knocking on the door. Will Pashley be able to create any last opportunities to try and make a late manoeuvre with not too much time left on the clock? 6 minutes 40 might sound like a fair amount of time, but in kart racing it is difficult to close those gaps often, and Joe Fowler in the number 1, he may have some defending to do. Sooner rather than later, perhaps. Purely depends on pace at this stage. Fowler and Pashley. 46.39 is the best effort managed by Fowler. Pashley's effort is 300ths quicker, which means that as things stand, Fowler is looking on course for second place because the championship leader of Pashley hasn't quite been able to close that gap by more, but it can change so quickly. Just needs to find a couple hundredths of a second, and Pashley is right on back of Fowler again. Quite close enough to make that manoeuvre at the moment, but Chris Whilton, who hasn't looked back since getting into the race lead, he looks comfortably out at the front there. Theo Hesketh in fourth. He's been moved down a couple of positions. He started on the front row of the grid, actually has dropped down the order now. Aaron Lask in fifth. Sixth place is Adam Sparrow. Alexander Page seventh. Eighth is Matthew Taylor. No changes in order within the top 15 on this last lap, but there's a couple of changes later on. Max Goldsmith and Isaac Marsh both clearing past James Ogden on that previous lap. Moves Ogden down to 19th position. Actually, Ogden has lost 4 places from his initial grid start, so not so great from him. But gaining 15, by the way, Kyle Sproat. He started 30th. He's now up to 15th place, so cleared exactly half the field. If he had another... the time has gone 10 minutes. If he had another 10 minutes, maybe we'd see him right at the very front, which would have been some display. But Chris Whilton leads the way still as a privateer after 13 laps. Still beating Joe Fowler as things stand, with James Pashley and Theo Hesketh in third and fourth. Into Inkermans they come, the top 4. Whilton with a little bit of a margin, but Pashley and Hesketh having closed up tiny amount to Joe Fowler now. That gap has been reduced to just under 0.2 of a second. Looked as though the gap was pretty much steadying into Joe Fowler's favour a few laps prior, but now perhaps Pashley, being this close, will just try to make an opportunistic lunge up the inside of one of the corners. Down to the pit bend and across the line they go once again then, with just over 4 minutes left, with just over half a second the advantage of the race leader Chris Whilton. Heading up the hill once again, the festively named Christmas corner greets the drivers. Takes slightly different lines actually, Joe Fowler and James Pashley on that corner. Whether that will favour one of them in laps to come, I guess we'll just have to wait and find out. Lee Whittingham has climbed a couple of positions, by the way. He is now up to 9th place. He's still got to finish, I think, ahead of Adam Sparrow to realistically be able to retain second place in the championship. As Sparrow is up into 6th, so at the moment he's made good progress as well. Lee Whittingham will need a miracle last few laps if he wants to claim second in the championship. No problems in the championship for our driver currently in 3rd place. Pashley is indeed in 3rd, but he is still struggling to get past Joe Fowler, although I can't imagine he'll be too upset if he doesn't manage to get past the number 1. Around Ashby, there you go. That trio of carts, a battle for second now, firmly is a 3-way battle. Chris Whilton has escaped far enough up the road that we can almost discount him from this particular fight. Couple of swapping down position further down the order. Carl Sproat to the number 7, overtaking Austin Monday. The Lichtfield Motorsport getting better of the TWM on that occasion, as a climbing 8th positions there. The number 13, Archie Strong, over the course of this race. He's had a very impressive performance with just under 2.5 minutes left on the clock. Into Christmas corner once again go those top 4, and switching round the very quick section of the circuit. Day and season for these drivers coming towards a close. Just want to make the most of it now, not make any silly mistakes right at the very end. But James Pashley aware that he is going to have a championship to defend next season. These are a few glory laps for him now, as the top few drivers head into pit bend. Across they come in front of my commentary position there, with 1 minute and 44 seconds left on the clock, approaching the final 90 seconds of racing. Really impressive fight going on as well for 5th, by the way. Aaron Lass ahead of Alexander Page, Adam Sparrow and Matthew Taylor. Those 4 drivers in a fight that's not too dissimilar to that at the very front. Whitton actually being reeled in ever so slightly by Joe Fowler in second place now. May yet see a very exciting finale to the senior TKM. Onto the back straight as they approach the penultimate corner. The boot, double right-hander. To pit bend once more. Fastest lap within these top few drivers, 46.37 by Joe Fowler, but it's a 46.36 by James Pashley, which he's been able to set, which means that he is currently the holder of fastest lap as well as the championship as things stand. It's interesting that Joe Fowler takes a much wider line on the exit of Christmas Corner, heading into Ashby. It looks as though Fowler may still be able to keep Pashley at bay for a few more laps. Not going to have too many left, mind. I think the next lap after this one will be the final lap. Going to be able to get round again, that's for sure. 20 seconds left to go. Heading around the boot once more, these drivers. Gaining 15 Carl Sprout over the course of this race now. I mentioned he was up to 15th position, but that seems to be where he has peaked. He hasn't been able to clear Austin Monday for a number of laps now. When he did, he unfortunately fell behind, but brilliant progress from him as the last few laps are upon us now. Just about a lap and a half or so to go before Chris Whitton is surely on course to take yet another victory. Victory in round 11 and surely in round 12 as well for Chris Whitton, with Joe Fowler, James Pashley and Theo Hesketh still an ever-presence in fourth place. A silent assassin he may be, has always been able to creep up to those drivers. His race pace has been second to none a lot of the time, but hasn't always been most aggressive, and maybe needed to be a little more aggressive if he was to be able to push into that top three. But the last lap of the race now, and they'll head up the hill for the final time. Chris Whitton on course for another victory here at Whilton Mill, as Pashley looks at his final fleeting few opportunities to try and get past Joe Fowler, and he does attempt the late manoeuvre up the inside now of Ashby, and he manages to get into second place after all that time and effort. And heading into the final few corners, really be able to hold on to it. Oziers is next, and he looks like he's far enough ahead that Joe Fowler, almost shell-shocked right at the end there, manages to just about stay ahead of Theo Hesketh. Does he? Hesketh's going to try and find a way through as well in the last few corners. Out they come at pit bend. Is Hesketh going to get a better run across the line? And it is the win for Chris Whitton. Joe Fowler in second. Well, he was in second, of course, dropped to third right at the end there. James Pashley coming across the line in second, with Theo Hesketh in fourth. Fifth in the end does go to Aaron Last, despite a ferocious battle there. Adam Sparrow finishing sixth and taking second in the championship, beating Lee Whittingham by enough points today, which meant that he was able to leapfrog him in the final couple of rounds and bump himself up into second place in the championship. Alexander Page in seventh. 8th, Matthew Taylor. Lee Whittingham in 9th, but drops to 3rd in the championship. Archie Strong gains 11 places over the course of the race to finish 10th. Matthew Walnut in 11th, 12th, Dan McKeown, 13th, Carl Sprout, who made a net gain of 13 places. Then 14th goes to Austin Monday, with Joseph Reed-Smith in 15th, 16th, Lewis Wadley, Kai Springfield 17th, 18th, Max Goldsmith, 19th, Christian Brearley, and Isaac Marsh rounds out your top 20 drivers of the TKM Extreme. The TKM Extreme season ended with Chris Whitton taking victory in round 12. James Pashley, the championship winner, finished his campaign in second place. We had a chat to the drivers to see how they thought the race went.
It's good to come back, get back on the podium. In the end, big thanks to Classen Motorsport and Adrian Game for the engines.
I think second was probably the best result I could have got today. Chris was a bit too quick. Yeah, just like to say a massive thanks to Jake Karts and my dad for mechanicking me all year.
I knew it was close all race, and that was keeping me honest. Every lap had to be perfect, and yeah, it was close. It was good.